Finally making anime content. Yeah, I guess new. I guess I haven't been following Evangelion, since the beginning. I got into it. Maybe some friends showed it to me, maybe 2017, 2018. I don't know. But yeah, I've watched the whole original series and of Eva and all the rebuilds now. And I just want to talk about my opinions on 3.0 plus 1.0. I really liked it, but I thought my opinions might be, unique compared to some other reviewers. Whatever. And just a PSA, this review probably isn't going to cover too much of the writing because I'm not really, heavily invested in the writing of the series. This is more about, I like the series conceptually and the atmosphere and its design and stuff like that. So it's coming more from that perspective. Okay, so right off the bat, the first thing I want to talk about is the CG. I think the CG in this show is, above average. It's not like the best CG in the world, but one thing I do think that the CG was really cool for in this movie was the sense of scale. Like in one of the earlier fight scenes in Paris where they're, shooting off ships and, they're drilling the Eiffel Tower, like the sense of scale, I think is so good in the CG because of how they can, manipulate the camera in a way they can't with 2D animation. Land of the Lustrous, which was a CG show that I absolutely loved, that show was really good with that as well. They really took advantage of, swiveling the camera around and doing a bunch of stuff like that. So I think that despite the fact that I didn't really like a lot of the fight choreography, the sense of scale against enemies or objects was really, really good. Okay, thing number 2. The cool UI for the mechs, as always. I'm surprised I don't hear other people talk about this. A huge part of why I'm invested in Eva is the UI design. Everything from the original design of the Magi UI system, in Mari's newly designed mech, how she has to spin the freaking iPod scroll wheel around to turn her mech around and manipulate it. All the ways that the pilots interface with their mechs, and even just the regular computer systems, how the Nerve employees have to navigate everything. The UI design in this show is so cool. And it's crazy how, despite the fact that a bunch of stuff has copied Eva or been inspired by it, the UI is still incredibly distinct. Right? I love the visual design of all the technology in this show. It's way more interesting to me than a lot of sci-fi shows that are just oh, I'm manipulating a hologram. I mean, I guess they're kind of doing that, but they, I don't know if it's Anno or who was in charge of, the conceptualization, but the UI in Eva is always sick. Okay, thing number 3. I don't like Mari's new voice for the Amazon Prime dub. I know a lot of people are happy that a lot of the original cast is returning for the Prime dub, and I'm definitely not a fan of the Netflix dub. I guess that's an opinion pretty much everyone shares. But I just don't think that new Mari has nearly as much crazy emotion and range. I get how the Funimation dub of Mari was kind of campy, but it's I don't know, just look up fight scenes with Mari with her original voice compared to this one. It's fine. Original Mari's a 10 out of 10 and this new Mari is maybe a 7 or an 8, but just original Mari's VA was to me unbelievable, within top 10 dub voices to me, and kind of made that character, even at a point where a lot of people were I don't know who this character is, why is she in this, I don't like that the rebuilds are so different, blah 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 blah. But I was bummed out that it might be the same VA. I could be wrong. I don't think it is. If it is, the voice direction was completely different for this new one. So I didn't like that. I liked almost everyone else's voice, though. It's just Mari really stood out, which is especially particular considering how important Mari is to the final movie and to the overall plot. I don't know, maybe it's, voice acting is a bunch of contracts and legal stuff and, unions and blah, blah, blah. So, hopefully people like the new Mari. I was kind of disappointed. Either the new voice direction or the new VA. I'm already losing track of which things it is. So, next thing, we're going to kind of combine this one. The mass production Evas and the fight scenes being dizzying. So the majority of the fight scenes in this movie are, here's a bunch of mass-produced Evas that Gendo/Nerve like made, right? So here's like the army, and it's just like they could morph and work as a hive mind and change into things. And it's like, that's all cool. And by the way, the new production Eva unit designs, especially the skull ones toward the end of the movie, are so sick. They're so cool. But the fight scenes are really dizzying. Like, if I watched this in like a big movie theater on like IMAX, I would have been nauseous. Like, everything's spinning around, the CGI frame rate's kind of low, there's so much shaky cuts, and especially the cuts inside the mech where it like shows them, but like on the outside it's still rotating. It's like, ugh. I mean, I know it was for like immersion, they probably wanted to convey the dizzyingness of being actually in the mech thing, but I just didn't think it worked. There was a lot of like, you know, there was just too much going on. I would have much rather preferred like the slower, really impactful fights that we had on like original Eva, right? This is one thing where I was like, I don't think that this movie did as well, right? Like, Eva, to me, the strength has always been in how unbelievably well they conveyed the weighty animation of a big robot. I think it's like, especially the sound design. The sound design in original Eva is crazy. It's crazy good. So yeah, didn't really like the mass-produced Eva fights. Okay. Next thing, the iconic atmosphere of like the ruined world, right? I wish we got so much more rather than a little montage, because there's the montage in the beginning with Asuka, Rei, and Shinji, or like Rei 2, going through like the desolate post-impact world where everything's all red and it's decrepit, and the imagery is so cool. You have like those big angels that are like frozen into the ground from like the fight, and like, oh my god. A really cool image, I've been thinking about this one a lot, even since seeing the movie, is when, I can't remember, they're just talking about something, about how the world went to crap, when they're in the town, and there's like this beautiful, pristine green town, and there's just like floating trains, like hovering in the air because of the, I don't know, I can't remember what it's called, but like the nerve, you know, plug that they put in the ground and it purifies the area, but it has like weird physics crap, I don't know. They're not going to explain everything, and Eva never has explained everything. But it's like, that was a huge thing for me. Oh, I really liked what they did with both Toji and Kensuke. Toji, like, picking up the slack and trying to be a doctor and help people because he needed direction is really cool. Kensuke was really cool. I loved Kensuke's sort of, not romance, but almost like his connection or like parentalness with Asuka. And like, he sees right past her crap and like really cares about her. Like, I thought Asuka and Kensuke's dynamic was really cute, even though, like many people, I didn't really like Asuka's character in this movie. But I thought Kensuke and Asuka's dynamic, despite being recently introduced, felt like very real to me and very, very cool. Also, Chad Kensuke with like his bunker, like on the outskirts of town. He's like the cool scientist guy. Oh, next thing, the farming scenes are really cool. I don't know what else to say about them. They were just really relaxing. All the stuff in the farm where we got to slow down and develop the characters. Visually, looked like a Ghibli movie. Emotionally, kind of felt like a Ghibli movie to me. Music was so good. Just a slow-paced, nice thing. It was really very refreshing. I didn't have too much to comment on it. It's just like, it's relaxing and good, and I didn't find it boring. But the acceleration out of it into the second half feels kind of rushed. Oh yeah, and next thing, Asuka is awful in this movie to Shinji. It's less like, oh, baka, and more like, I'm just abusive. And it's like, oh. I mean, I know there's no excusing it, but this, you know, is a movie about trauma and everyone's trauma kind of bouncing off each other. But Asuka's just like, her trauma and her past and everything just has made her so cruel. Like, the fact she's like, ow, you just have PTSD from looking at my choker? What a dork. It's like, what the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with you? It's crazy. I was like, I wouldn't even want, if I was like an Asuka stan, I wouldn't even want Shinji and Asuka to end up together. Like, their relationship is toxic, just existing in the same room. Okay, next thing. Kind of moving out of the town village section. What happens is, after experiencing a bunch of stuff in the town, Rei's like programming, her clone programming sort of like malfunctions, I guess, and she just explodes in front of Shinji, like, pop! And after all of Shinji's PTSD and his reactions to, you know, his friends, like, being killed off, and, like, especially his reaction from Kaoru's death in the other movie, it's like, I don't know. It's just weird to me. It's weird to me how he just sees her explode and doesn't have, like, doesn't throw up, doesn't have the same reaction. And he's just like, I have to carry on the honor or whatever. And, like, I'm healed now. Let's go meet up with Asuka to go beat the final boss. It's like, what? Like, they should have just had her die in, like, off screen or in a different way if they didn't want the trauma response. Like, how he saw the same thing that happened to his other friends and he didn't react the same way. It's like, what happened to this whole thing about, like, his triggers and the chokers and people exploding? And, like, it just doesn't make any sense. I was very frustrated with that. That whole section of, like, Rei 2 dying, to Shinji accepting it, to moving on and asking Asuka to go with her to the whatever, the Nerve HQ. It was just like, that part sucks. It's like they did not know how to connect the first half and second halves of the movie. So there's like, oh, Shinji just gets over his trauma and, like, no therapy, he's just fine. He's like, and he's like, okay. That part sucked. Okay, so this is a controversial take. The fan service in this movie was super distracting. It's fine, but for this, like, and Evangelion has always been horny. Like, since the beginning, since the original series, you know, Kaji and Misato always, like, making out, and then it, like the Misato Shinji kiss, like, controversial scene in End of Eva, and then all the scenes with, like, obviously the hospital scene with Shinji and the original. Like, it's always been a thing. It's fine. I've been trying to point down why it bothered me in this and it didn't bother me in any of the other ones. And I think it's just because, like, the fan service was in the context of the characters emotionally. And a lot of the most fan servicey scenes in this are with Mari. Because Mari's just, you know, Mari just is like, hell yeah, sex positive Mari. Mari is just Mari. But the issue is, since we didn't really know much about Mari's character, and this show is so much about, like, trauma and its effects on sexuality and, like, how, like, people's relationships stem from their childhood traumas, all that, blah, 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 blah. But we don't know enough about Mari to not make her just, like, a fan service entity. Like, especially her with Asuka and Nerve HQ, where she's like, ooh, it's been a while, Asuka, and she's, like, sniffing on her. It's like, what the... I was like, okay, sell the posters, sell the figures, do what you gotta do. But there were some scenes in this movie that were particularly distracting. Okay, next thing. I loved the parallel between Misato and her new son, Kaji, to Gendo and Shinji, especially when we found out at the end about Gendo's motives. I thought it was so cool how Misato had taken on this role to, like, protect the planet and protect everyone and maybe sacrifice herself, and she, like, couldn't emotionally get close to Kaji and wanted to spare him of, like, learning about her death and who the father was and all this stuff. I thought that was, like, really interesting and really cool. I loved Misato's character in this movie. It's good to have the, you know, the OG voice, everything. Misato's sick. Misato was one of the best parts of this movie. Every single scene she was in was memorable. It was all impactful. Her character made sense. I loved it. Oh, and how everything that happened to Shinji and how Misato's involving him in the Nerve, you know, projects damaged him and traumatized him. How that made her not want the same for Kaji was super interesting. Because, you know, Misato has always been proud of or looked down on Shinji as kind of like a surrogate, you know, son or little brother or whatever. Like, she's always had, her point was, like, to be a very motherly, you know, character to Shinji. After Shinji doesn't, you know, have his mom. So I thought that was, like, really cool. Another scene in Nerve HQ that I really liked was when, like, Asuka reveals that she likes Shinji. She's like, oh, I used to like you. And then she's like, oh, I like you too. And Asuka's like, well, we can't be together though because I grew up ahead of you. And the idea that they were both traumatized, but one person kind of got frozen in time from that, and Asuka kind of, you know, had to grow up quickly. She had to be the adult. Is they're no longer compatible. That was, like, super interesting to me. The I'm growing up ahead of you line was really cool, and in a movie where I didn't really like Asuka's character, I thought that part was super awesome. Oh yeah. The most anime moment of this movie, or one of the most anime moments, is when they're fighting the mass Evas in their HQ, and they just like Gurren Lagann style drill through, like, these 10 million Evas. It was so stupid, but I loved it. Another thing is Asuka's voice actress, how in some scenes when she talks really quietly made me laugh. Like, her whispering low voice freaked me out. Like there's a scene where she's walking up to like defeat Ava Unit 13, and she's like, if I can just get to the core of the crystal of the Ava. I was like, what? Like, it was literally like, I can't believe I'm about to destroy this Ava's core crystal. It made me laugh so hard. I don't know what it is. It's just something about it was like so didn't match like that. You idiot! You know? It was funny. Oh, and along with that, when she tries to break into Unit 13 and her Ava puts up the AT field, and we later see this with Gendo as well, is like, is my Ava afraid of like the, you know, of Unit 13? I thought that was super interesting because the AT fields are never like fully explained, and I'm like, do they represent like anxiety? Like it's like when you kind of freeze up and you don't know what to say, like if you're having anxiety on like a date or like a job interview or something. Like I never really understood what they represented, and then I don't really understand. This is just rebuild moment, but in the original, there was that scene where Asuka finally realized her mom's like soul was in the Ava or whatever. And it's like, oh my god, I understand the meaning of the AT field, and it's like I feel like that's not really conveyed in the rebuild as much. The rebuild more just says like, it's the walls we put up between humanity, and we gotta break down our AT fields and become one. And so to me, it just feels like it represents anxiety, but that's just my opinion. Oh, and I know people say it's too short, but the visuals for Asuka turning into the Ninth Angel is so sick. It's so sick. And also the scene where her eye, she takes out like the purification plug out of her eye because she had like one in her to prevent her from like angel transforming. Oh my god. So cool. I loved it. I know a lot of people wanted to see her wreck shit and it's a trap, but it was so cool looking. Like visually, the music, everything was awesome. But this is another part of the movie that made me laugh, where the like original Asuka or like the god demon Asuka, whatever, comes to her and she's like, join me, become god. And then she's like, no, and she like pulls her soul out or whatever, like the god version pulls her out, like absorbs her into her. The sound effect it makes, she's like, you idiot, you're coming with me. And then she pulls her out, goes like, Bwee! It made me laugh because it was such a like video gamey noise. It was like, you got a Zelda item. Can't wait for my soul to get absorbed and I get a Discord notification noise. I don't know why that part it was just the sound it made was really funny to me. I don't know what sound effect would have not been funny, but that one in particular, like, was really weird. Oh, and this is just unrelated. I can't tell if I like the new RGB plug suits or not. They're cool. They're fine. I think they're a little simplistic looking, but they're fine. It is just funny how it's like, we're in the future, now we have RGB on our plug suits. What up, gamers? I thought Gendo's transformation into like God Gendo was cool. I liked how like they shoot the glasses off and he's got like a crazy God eye. I really liked, I don't know if this is a translation thing, but I really like how he goes, there are no problems. Like he's not concerned about anything other than like, is it going according to plan? So he's like, how could you do this? Blah, 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 blah. There are no problems. What a Gendo moment. Oh, okay. An issue I had. The scene where they're like, Shinji, don't pilot the Ava again. You're going to fuck up and cause another impact. And then Misato's like, no, the impact would have happened anyways and more people would have died. So Shinji did the impact, but still a bunch of people died, but less people died. And then all the NPC people are like, oh my god, you're right. You know, you're both the demon and the angel, Shinji. Oh my god. That scene, I liked the character development with Misato like sacrificing and literally taking the bullet for Shinji so he didn't die. But what's her face? Like Toji's sister, I think it's Sakura, and the other girl, they'd be like, no, you're absolutely right. Like, they literally 180. They're like, it actually wasn't totally his fault. Okay, we believe you. Go Shinji. It was like, that was another scene where it's like, what is happening? We condensed an hour of character into 5 seconds. So yeah, didn't love that. Oh, but Shinji taking the time to be like, Misato, I met Kaji, he's a nice young man, he's doing really well. Like when she was hurt, it was like so sweet. It was such a good Shinji moment. I loved it. I loved it so much. Next one, probably the most anime moment in the movie, where they're like, oh my god, what is Shinji's sync rate with Ava Unit 1? I thought it was 0. And then like What's her face? Scientist lady, not Misato. I don't remember. Scientist lady. I can't believe I'm blanking on her name. But scientist lady is like, oh, could it be that his sync value wasn't 0, but the value closest to 0? 0.000. It's like, his sync ratio is infinite. So good. It was so good. That was literally like a studio trigger moment. Okay, so then Anno goes in the anti-universe and the portal opens up. I like that scene where before Shinji goes off to like save everyone in the anti-universe, Mari's like, Shinji, go help Asuka, go help Princess. And then she's like, I'll come for you no matter where you are. Which is like, I know they're really trying to push the romance in this one, but I thought that was sweet. I thought that was a cute line, okay? Sorry for people, and justifiably so, I think Mari's introduced and rushed, but that was cool. So the next thing is we go in the anti-universe. Some of the visuals in the anti-universe are so sick. The fucking kaleidoscope monologue while Gendo's talking to Shinji and they're like morphing is one of the coolest scenes in the movie. It's like animation wise, it's so sick. I like the kind of parody of a kaiju movie where there are these big CG guys fighting in the city. I liked a lot of it. And some people, I think, probably thought the CG in that was bad. I thought it was on purpose. I thought it was, like, supposed to be a reference to, like, old crappy CG, like, kaiju stuff. So I don't really know what the anti-universe is supposed to represent to Anno. Maybe it's the original series or its own dimension, but, like, them falling through memories and trauma and Shinji working out everything with Anno, it was, like, really cool. Like, the scene where, like, Shinji working out everything with Anno. Shinji working out everything with Gendo. Shinji's supposed to be Anno in this movie, okay? It's a self-insert. But Shinji finally working everything out with Gendo, and Gendo hugging like child Shinji. I was like, oh, so sweet! That was like hard to watch. It was so good though. It was so good. Okay, so then we get Fourth Impact. I laughed really hard at all of these like floating destroyed like Ava units being transformed into beautiful nude mannequins, just like strutting their stuff. It's like, yes, queen, yes. It was the most like, oh, okay, I guess Fourth Impact or whatever is just like Project Runway. So good. It was like, what the hell? Like, it was weird. Okay, but then there's that scene where Mari is like talking to what's his face? Isn't it Fuyutsuki, I think is his name? Am I wrong? Gendo's assistant. And he's like, we got too blinded by hope and our own ambitions. And Mari's like, yeah, I don't want the world to end. And he's like, blah, 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 blah. It's been a long, you would too, Mari Iscariot. I think that's her name. It's like, oh, I am not Mari Makinami Illustrious. I'm Mari Iscariot or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck is this manga shit? Who is Mari Iscariot? Why does she have a different last name? But it's like not her code name because she's like a time traveler or a dimension traveler or something because she came from to save everyone. I don't even know. But I was pissed that they dropped a different name like in this last section of this last movie, Oh, something interesting I think Anno was trying to say in this movie. Did anyone pick up on the fact that he was talking about an instrumentality eliminating like wealth inequality? I looked in both translations, both in the Japanese sub and the English dub, and it's not exactly the same, but it's always like no poverty, no discrimination, everyone being the same, and blah, 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 blah. And like, I can't remember if that was something that they explicitly said in End of Ava, but I thought it was interesting how Anno's probably been like taking the political landscape in, all these years. And like wealth inequality globally in every country is like a discussion right now, right? And like also depending on where you are, like racial justice too. So it's very interesting that Anno decided to put in like this idea of like we're gonna all be exactly the same. We're all gonna be equal and absorb into this thing, and we won't have the 1% anymore. Like, I was kind of surprised. It was kind of ballsy to put that in. It makes sense, but I just wanted to point that out. It was like, Anno doing wealth inequality commentary? Whoa. And I think the movie points out that saying, let's get rid of all inequality completely and be all exactly the same and all equal is like kind of a naive solution. Or it's at least simplistic. And I think the movie kind of talks about that. But the fact that he was willing to put that at all, and the fact that it's an international movie, there was dubbed in so many different languages and stuff, is really interesting to me. Okay, fourth impact CGI Rey, totally on purpose. I don't care what anyone says. It was ugly and creepy on purpose. It was designed to evoke fear in the uncanny valley. It's designed to be creepy. They wouldn't have shown all these close-ups on the eye and all this stuff. Like, the CGI is janky and bad, totally on purpose. Like, it doesn't look, the lighting is different. It doesn't look like the CG in any other parts of the movie. It looks totally different. So people being like CGI Rey looks bad. I think it's supposed to look bad. It's supposed to look bad and unsettling and creepy. They could have made it look nice and cel-shaded and beautiful, and it wouldn't have had the same effect. Oh, and I liked Asuka's scenes in the anti-universe. The scene of Kensuke coming to comfort her when she's crying after, all of her trauma, remembering from, like, Germany with her mom and everything. And he's like, you just need to be yourself and, like, just smile and be happy. I can't remember what he says, but when he's, like, on the log comforting little Asuka, it's like, oh, Kensuke! And then also, when Shinji came to apologize and send her off was so cool. The fan service with Asuka at the very end was kind of confusing, but I'm assuming it's because the curse of Eva has been broken and she suddenly aged up and, like, ripped her suit because she went from being, like, young to probably, like, in her 20s now. Well, 20s is still young, but not like a 16-year-old or whatever. And she wakes up and it's like, I was like, why is her clothes ripped? But if you look closely, she's clearly older. Her face looks different. That scene was so cool. I loved it. And then it's like, oh, sorry about everything, Asuka. Have fun. I'll see you. Bye. And then Shinji's like, see ya. Okay. Although it was really funny, Shinji casting aside the Evas and Anna being like, Anna and Elsa. And Anno, like, casting aside the franchise, be like, I'm done with it. Stop talking to me about it. It's over. I've said all I wanted to say. And, like, all the Evas literally getting yeeted and, like, impaled. Like, pew, pew, it was, like, really funny. It was a really funny, like, literally just, like, pew, 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 like, friggin' Windex that shit off the face of the earth. But I thought it was, like, a cool scene. It was a cool scene. But it is so blunt just to be like, Ava's dead. Goodbye, fans. But this also means the ending of Kaoru's suffering. Yay! No more time loops for Kaoru! Yay! I love Kaoru. Kaoru's best boy. Oh, OG long hair Rey. OG long hair Rey. OG long hair Rey is sick. Her design's so cool. That's all I'm gonna say. Oh, dude, some people are going to call out the line for being weird or cheesy. I got chills when Shinji's like, all right, Neon Genesis. I was like, oh, you Neon Genesis this shit, bitch. It was so good. I loved that scene. It was so great. We always kind of knew it with everything with Asuka, but it's like Yui being inside Eva Unit 1 is like so fitting and so perfect. Like it goes, like even if you look at the original series, like in one of the first episodes, there's the scene where like something's happening and the Eva Unit like reaches out its hand to protect Shinji on its own. And they're like, how did Shinji synchronize? And it's like, and Gendo didn't actually know it, like, or he did. I don't think he did though. Like he was like looking for Yui the whole time, right? So it's like, oh my god, like it makes perfect sense. And going back and rewatching the original series, like I'm rewatching the original now with that perspective that Yui is Eva Unit 1 is really, really, really cool. And it's a really cool way to think about it. Like in the one of the first episodes when it goes berserk because Shinji won't fight because it's like his mom protecting him when he can't fight himself. Like all this shit is like that perspective on the series is so interesting and so cool, and it totally makes sense, and I love it. And this means Yui can pass away in peace with the reset of the Evas. Yay! You've done enough, Yui. You were fucking sick behind the scenes. Oh my god, the world resurrection. Okay, so I really like, because Anno and Mari is clearly a parallel to like Anno and his wife, right? Like I know other people have talked about it, but you know, Ava's always been about Anno's depression and his issues and him working through them in like a fictional world and stuff, right? Like I think a lot of it is just his own personal stuff, which when you have a creator who writes themselves, you know, that leads to both some janky writing, but also some amazing, you know, emotionality a lot of the time. So I thought that as a whole, the series was really good. I was very satisfied with the ending of the rebuilds. They're not all perfect, but I like this one a lot. And I say this as a recent fan. I know that people who've been following this for like the whole 25 years or whatever might feel differently, but recent as in, you know, 2010s fan, not, you know, 90s Ava fan, you know, watching on VHS or whatever. So I thought it was great. Just a couple things about the ending. I really like how when they're restoring the world, Shinji's on the beach and it's all illustrated and there's some color, but it's basically black and white like manga style. And then the second that Mori jumps out of the Eva and hits the water, like the world's filled with color, which if you've ever been depressed, like some people literally see the world as less colorful if they're having a mental health issue. Like it's a real thing. So like it's like Mari like bringing him out of the dark hole. And like into the beautiful world or whatever. I mean, also the fact that one of the songs for Ava is literally, you know, I think one of the Utah songs is called Beautiful World. The connections! But the fact that it ends that way, and with, you know, Mari being like, let's go, Shinji, I'm taking the choker off of you because you're not an anime character anymore. You're just a dude. You can't wear a choker now. And they're like, let's go. I like the ending. Although the ending really was, you watch too much anime, go outside and get a glasses GF. Because I think Anna's just like, I get passive income from all my Ava merch now. I'm just gonna go hang out and like go into the real world, you know. So I thought overall, it was great. It was a great movie. So thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe. I have a Twitch channel, TikTok, whatever. I'll link everything below. Let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments. Bye.